Okay, welcome to another episode of Panakal Podcast for Geeks, the show about good friends hanging out, talking about the things we all love. Hey, man, I got it right again. I really should put that. I really
That's
should
like
put that
two in
to
a row, I think.
better memory. Our guest today is John Stanko, who's done a lot of work for Magic, D&D, Blizzard, Fantasy Flight. Let me think. Star Wars. Hey, welcome to another episode of Panakal Podcast for Geeks, the show about good friends. Oh, Upper Deck, cool.
Yep.
And then, all know my co-host, Andrew Sides. Welcome to the show, John. It's about time we finally got you on here, man. It's been...
I know, right?
You're a hard person to get a hold of sometimes.
No, you get a hold of me. It's just scheduling the time.
Yeah.
So you
know what happens is we schedule we try our best to schedule multiple guests in a row. So we have this whole month filled up, right? And then what ends up happening through no fault of their own sometimes is they forget they're on. That's why we were on top of reminding you, or their schedules shift. Some of them are busier than us, obviously.
Sure.
So their schedules shift, and then you're like, okay, well, when do you want to get on next? And then by that time, since we've already filled the next month, we're like, well, we can't get you on for another month and a half, and we're not even that big, so it's just we're just very, very, very good at keeping our schedules full. So. But yeah, I was telling Andrew, I was trying to remember where you and I met for the first time.
Yeah,
I want to say it's a LuxCon, but I'm not 100% sure.
Right. That sounds right.
Yeah, I think I met you at a LuxCon.
At Allentown or Altoona or Reading?
It has to either be Allentown or Reading. I've never been to Altoona.
Me either. Yeah, it had to. Yeah, Allentown. I'm sure it was Allentown because I've only been to Allentown. That's the only one I've been to.
So it must have been my first year. Must have been the last year I was there and my first time there that you and I met. Because so I was telling Andrew, there's a funny story here. Is so I was at San Diego with Miles last year, right? And John happens to walk by, and I'm like, oh, hey, that's John Stanko. And I'm like, what's up, John? And John just keeps walking.
I didn't hear you.
I know. And then Miles was like, you sure you know that guy? I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like, he's probably in his own head right now or something. I don't know what's going on.
Talk to me, man.
And then well, it was whatever. But then John came over to talk to me when we were at Gen Con. You came over to apologize actually, and I'm just like,
I did because I thought it was you, and then I thought, no, that can't be right because he would have told me if he was coming. So I thought it was just and so I just kind of kept going because you know how it is when you're walking around San Diego, everything's just so much everywhere, and you think you recognize somebody, but it's like, oh, that's not who I thought it was.
Yeah. So I was just like, okay, no, it's fine. I you know what, Miles and I had a good laugh over it, and I was just like, and then I didn't know where you went, so you didn't have a booth at the show, I didn't think.
Oh yeah,
you did? Okay, I didn't really. So I didn't. What's that now?
I'm in Donato's old spot, where Donato used to be.
Dude, you're right around the corner from us.
Yes.
Literally. Are you there this year?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll be there this year too.
All right, cool. Cool. Tyler Jacobs is going to be there too, or not Jacobs?
Really?
Tyler
Walpole. Yeah. I know. I saw his I saw his message on Twitter. Yeah. I'm just letting anyone who wants to ask questions feel free to ask questions.
Yeah.
I can't use the chat window inside Streamlabs. I just noticed for some reason, but that's something we'll fix later.
That's weird.
So.
Well, so let's do our usual thing that we've been doing lately. What has everyone been enjoying?
Oh, something new. You or John start.
Okay, John, do you got anything, or do you want me to go first?
You go first.
My wife and I just started watching Jury Duty on Amazon, which is kind of weird, and I don't know what the intent of it is yet, but basically it's
stress people out.
Well, no, 'cause here's the thing. It's presented as a documentary to be we wanted to see what the judicial process is through the eyes of the jury duty. But then they add the caveat. It's the catch is, though, there's only one person that is an actual real person. Everyone else is an actor in this scenario. It's the judge, the bailiff, the lawyers, the rest of the jury duty members. James Marsden's in it, playing a weird version of himself. It's him as James Marsden, but it's a fictionalized version of himself. And just this one guy is is the one dude that's like not aware of any of this. That this entire thing that's being done is like all like a setup, like a Truman Show kind of thing.
Okay.
But we only saw like one episode so far, so I'm curious to see like where does this go? Like what is the intent of this?
Yeah, like
kind of
what are
thing?
you stressing people out for? Like you're gonna make somebody like judge somebody's life, and then you're like, surprise, it's not real.
Well, yeah. So like they did mention it was kind of like I guess it was like they told him like ahead of time where they during the jury selection process they mentioned it was like I think like kind of a traffic violation or something like that.
Sure.
The previews they showed, it's like clear it's going to spiral from that because already like within the first episode, they staged like a bunch of paparazzis coming to get James Marsden, and then as a result, the judge was like, "All right, I'm going to sequester everyone for this trial so no one gets distracted." And the guy's like, "Oh my god! Like I just got sequestered on this like bullshit like low level trial."
Yeah. Dude, jury duty is stressful. You can ask anyone who's ever
I've
done
never
it.
done it. I've
Lucky.
never had.
I've come really close. I think I've said this story.
I've only had to go in to get picked, but I've never sat in on one.
So they made me go through the whole process of like a whole day of like thing where they ask you questions, and I remember.
Oh, I didn't even get that.
So I had to go sit on the like what do you call it, where the jury sits, right up there, and the judge will ask you like why do you think you should not be part of this? And some people are just like straight up. One guy is the guy on trial was black, so some people immediately went the racist angle, and the judge will be like, sure, man, whatever, you're still in.
You know what? They actually did that as a joke within the
people try. That's what they tell you to do, right? Yeah. If you say you don't like whatever race is up there,
so
they got to get a read on you. Like, are you serious or not?
Yeah.
One of the other actors posing as another juror was asking, like, he was like, I really can't be in like jury duty. Is there any way I can get out of this? And the guy that they're, I guess, basically playing a prank on, like the real guy, he was like, well, he's like, I remember a Family Guy episode where Peter pretended he was racist, and that got him out of jury duty. And the guy was like, that's a good idea. I'm going to try that. So then he steps up. He's like a very like the character that this actress portraying is like supposed to be a very milquetoast kind of character. So he stands up and he's like, I can't do this jury because I'm actually a racist. A beat of silence.
No.
And the judge goes, are you really? He goes, no, Your Honor. No, I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that.
Like no one who's actually like no racist is actually gonna be like, I'm a racist. Like, don't put me on there.
Yeah. It's like the bad guy doesn't know they're a bad guy.
Right.
In a movie. He's not like, hey, I'm the bad guy. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, so this judge was like, I remember I was like, oh, you're going to pull me away for 4 days. I'm a freelancer. I'm going to lose money. Because I was like, you guys are only paying me like $30 a day or something. It's not even an hour, right? It's a day or something. Some pittance. Yeah. And I was just like, I'm going to lose money here. And I'm a freelancer and I have bills to pay. And he was like, too bad, so sad. Because I was like, I don't want to judge this guy, whatever. But it ends up like one of the lawyers had an accident and they didn't need any of us, so they cut us all loose. And it was just being there for the day. I was like, they postponed the case, but what they have to do is find new jury because they don't make you win.
Yeah.
So like this, I feel bad for the guy who's got what's the word I'm looking for? Plaintiff? Like, he still has to go sit in a prison cell or whatever till they find a new jury for him, right? But I was just like, I'm going home, man. Like, I hated every minute I was there. It's just like, this is a complete, and I have a friend who's a lawyer who's just like, it's your duty. You have to do it. And I'm just like, I don't want to. Like, I don't really know what to say. I feel bad because I get it. As a lawyer, he's like, it's your civic duty. You should do this thing. Right. You should be proud of it. And I'm just like, I'm not really proud of that. But that show, I watched some of it after you talked about it, and I was like, it's got its moments where you're just like, ooh, this is tense. But then it's funny. And then it's like, what kind of experiment are these guys running,
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of curious about, is to see, like, where the hell does this go?
So,
what is the ultimate end result of this whole thing? So, I just watched one episode of it so far. I don't know exactly how many there are. I'm assuming it's 10 or less, That's usually seems to be the case for everything streaming nowadays. But yeah.
So I can go next, or John, do you have something?
Well,
since we told
we
you
finished
20 minutes before the show
Picard.
went live.
Yeah, that's so good. We finished Picard a couple months ago, and that was really good.
Oh yeah,
it's 3 seasons, right?
Yeah, season 3. Yeah,
and they close it out.
Yes, it's done.
Okay,
Well,
I'm still in.
I don't see how they go.
At least that generation of the.
Yes.
Got it. Yeah. I started.
They had a great opening note to go on for a new show.
Okay.
If they take it that way, and it's gonna.
Now, is that set in?
I would actually watch that if they did a show for that. I would totally watch.
I don't want to give away too much.
Well, which universe is that set in? Is that set in the original generation?
Yes, the original.
Okay.
The original Next Generation world. Yes.
Because I started watching Discovery, and I watched season 1. I liked it, but I like the other one with
or Prime.
What's up?
Discovery set in Kelvin, or is it set in Prime, like the original universe?
It's set in
the J.J. Abrams one.
Yeah, I don't even know if the J.J. Abrams one. I think it's its own, because if you watch the first season,
that's the Kelvin. That's the Kelvin one. As far as I know, they only have the 2 that are.
Well, there's the other show with oh man, what's the captain?
Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds.
Yeah,
that show is. I've been cranking through that because it's really enjoyable.
I've only made about 4 episodes in. It's not bad, but it's not Picard. I mean,
it's not Picard. I heard. Yeah, I have Picard's on my list still.
I watched season 1 Picard. That was okay. Then I heard how bad season 2 was, so I thought, you know what? Everybody's saying it's bad. I'm gonna leave it alone. Then everybody was saying how good 3 was, so I skipped 2 and went straight to 3. And I'll tell you what, 3 was just.
I did the exact same thing.
So I guess you don't need to watch 2, is what you're saying?
You don't have to watch 1 or 2, to be honest.
Oh,
1 was okay. 1 was okay because it was nostalgic and it was fine, but you don't need to watch it. Yeah,
you could if you really are curious, because there is like some things that they reference in the 3rd season that's like I don't think they reference anything in season 2 from what I understand, but like season 1 they kind of reference here and there.
Yeah, they do because of Data, the stuff with Data.
Yeah,
they kind of go back to some of that. But I'll tell you what, man, that was so well written.
It was really good.
Oh wow! I mean, because I was like, okay, how are they going to have these people that are borderline geriatric guys save the universe? And I'm like, this isn't going to work. You know, I'm just like waiting for the other shoe to drop and it get to be sloppy, but there was no sloppy writing. It was so good.
No,
it made complete sense why they were able to do what they were able to do. It's just
all right. That's good to know.
It's
on my list of things to watch.
Absolutely, give it a watch. Like I was telling another friend, it was basically the Next Generation movie that I never got, like way back when.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was almost like, I mean, I don't know if you guys are Firefly, but it's like that Serenity did for Firefly.
Yeah, it was like good closure for everything.
Yeah, gave you closure, but yet enough to where if you want to go back there again, maybe they will. And I've heard rumors that's coming back too. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, I've heard rumors that they've been talking to.
Yeah, but they've been saying rumors on it forever, I think. But
I think the bigger problem is Whedon is. People don't want him back in Hollywood, and I'm just like, sure. I mean, give it to another director.
I was going to say, I don't think he has like control over that, does he? Because I'm pretty sure Fox just owns that.
Fox owns it. That's why it got canceled.
Now Disney, Disney could easily say, no, you're done.
Well, Fox, that's why it didn't go to any other networks when it was done, right? They weren't allowed to.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't follow all the details about it, but
everything's just a rumor till it's a fact, obviously. So anytime someone's like, "I heard they're gonna make a new Firefly," I'm like, sure.
Yeah. Well, Nathan,
I hope they do.
He would do it. Yeah, he said he would do it.
I mean, they bought him. What's that?
I'd enjoy that. I do love Nathan Fillion.
Yeah, so Fillion, like when he left, so he just came back to Destiny too. He was in a commercial, right? A new where he voices a specific character that's supposed to be gone, and then he's back. And he said he would never come back, or they said he was gone, and then he's back again. And I like that guy. He's a good actor, and he's cool, even though his voice.
Nothing but amazing things for people to know him too.
Yeah,
they say he is one of the most down to earth, nice, respectful human beings on the planet. And I could totally see it. just in how he acted, just on the show. So can only imagine. I've never had the pleasure to meet him, but my people that do know him, like Chris Burdett, right? Chris Burdett knew him.
Yeah, he did. Chris
yeah.
did a lot of
yeah.
monster like makeup stuff forever.
Well, yeah, because he actually did Firefly. He worked on Firefly.
That's cool.
Yeah, he actually made you remember Jane's Day? Jane's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he actually made the Jane statue. So he actually
that's great.
Have you ever seen? Speaking of Chris, have you ever? I think he's got a home office now, but I'm guessing the inside of it, or he's got a tiny office in his backyard, and I'm guessing the inside of it looks the same. But his office, he's a huge Star Wars fan.
Yes.
Like, okay, and his office had like the old school figures, like hundreds of them, and I was just like, bro, I hope all that's insured.
Right.
And now it's in his house in his backyard. I'm like, dude, it's just sitting in your backyard. I hope that's insured. But I mean, I like Star Wars, but I don't own that many Star Wars toys. Like
I like the first three, or I guess the
original
4, 5,
3.
6.
Yeah,
the
4,
original
5, 6.
I was fine with the other ones after that. And Rogue One was fine, but after that they kind of lost.
Have you watched any of the shows? Like Andor?
I watched Mandalorian. I liked. I locked out to Mandalorian was really strong. The first season, I didn't watch anything after that. I kind of felt like after the first season, I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's kind of fair.
Yeah.
It took me a little getting used to after the first season, because I could tell at first I was like, what the hell's happening? And then I understood they have all these other shows coming out and they have more movies coming out. So what they have to do is lead you into that universe spec. I just don't want them to do another Skywalker story. Like, I want different. Like, that's what I like about Andor.
That was my concern with like the second and third season. Like the first season of Mandalorian, I like a lot because it's a lot of neat things. Like, I've never seen a person hand-to-hand combat with a TIE fighter. That was neat. I'd never seen that before. So I was like, oh, that's cool.
He's like, he's gonna die.
And I think the
season
world
2 and season 3 felt a lot of the.
What is that?
I was gonna say, like, season 2, season 3, like, kind of fell into a lot of the traps that Star Wars tends to get into, where things get too interconnected, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, everyone knows everyone. It's like 2 degrees separated from Skywalker at this point.
Well, the Obi-Wan was, I don't know how you could do that one and screw that up, but they did, and that was so sad.
I feel like sometimes they're like, we have this like excellent team of writers, and then the B squad, and then they're like, you guys are all on, Andor, and then you guys are on Kenobi, and they didn't know that character at all.
There were so many things that just didn't make sense. And I know, from the outside, it's so easy for us to sit here and judge and say,
sure,
this, that, the other thing. But I, from the people I know that actually work in that field, unfortunately, you'd be surprised how much nonsense goes on. They could be amazing, but then this happens, then this happens, and this happens. I got a chance to listen to Ian McKay. Were you there at Spectrum when Ian McKay gave a talk about what happened with John Carter and how that happened?
I believe that was the year he won the award, right?
Was he?
No, I think that was the year. John Carter is
one of the lead concept guys for John Carter.
Oh wait, no, sorry, Ian McKay. Yeah, no, sorry. For some reason, I was thinking Ewan McGregor for a split second. I was like, what? He was in John Carter? No.
Is it when he was talking about how they changed the title and they changed the name and?
Yeah. And then he talked about how they went through, and then he names off like 10 directors or something like that were going to do it. Not that many, but he named off like 4 or 5 just phenomenal directors that were going to do it. One of them, I think, was even Jon Favreau. He was like, oh yeah, Favreau's going to do it. Oh, but we got this movie Iron Man. Which would you rather do? And so he goes and does Iron. I mean, it's like,
of course.
It's like, and then he names another director, and then he names another director. He said we went through so many different directors and so many different pieces of concept, and then Disney came in and took it from us, and he just went through how it happens, and it's just like, well, no wonder it ended, not as good as it could have been because there was so many cooks in the kitchen on it. And I can only imagine how many times that stuff happens.
That's like
that's tied to the Ian McKay story I told you about with John Carter, where he you know, it's basically that. Like he got stuck on like 3 or 4 different studio iterations of it, which meant
Yes.
he had to create the same concept like 3 or 4 separate distinct times.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It with completely different visions and completely different ideas.
Which that is hard. That's a tall ask.
Yeah, you get the first one done, you're like, I'm good, we're good, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I know, like, at least with the writer stuff, like, I mean, this is one of the main things that they're striking over right now is the fact that a lot of the traditional writer rooms are not structured that way anymore, where you have your group of people and they're kind of there the entire season. They stick with it. Now it's more like mercenary, where I want to say it's almost kind of closer to like how advertising seems to work, at least like for me, like whenever I do freelance advertising, where they pull you and they're like, we need you for like 2 days or whatever to work on this script.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do your 2 days and they're like, okay, here's your money, bye.
Yeah, and they're
Yours.
saying
So
not to do that,
zero
right?
input in terms of like, huh?
What's happening right now is there's a lot of writers who are on strike right now are requesting that those writers, whatever you want to call them, guerrilla writers or whatever, like requesting that they don't do that, because that's what's, you know, a lot of these studios are like, fine, you don't want to write, we'll just get this cheap writer here.
Well,
He's willing to work.
well, the main issue is like that's a systemic thing. Like they've changed it from being the writer's room where there's a group of people that carry it forward the entire time to like you have like one showrunner stick with it, which is like how you get Andor. And if they have a strong hand on it, steer that course. But if there's a say like if the showrunner's more used to being like collaborating with other writers and stuff, then you end up with this issue where this team of writers that they set out with episode 1 is not the same team of writers that they'll have
Right.
by like episode 10, because the studio will switch out the writers so often and so frequent that there's not enough people around to help develop and like mature the series as it goes.
Yep.
And like taking it back to Star Trek, like think about like how Next Generation was for like the first 2 seasons. Like they're terrible.
Yeah.
Did not really hit their stride until like the 3rd season.
They're nostalgic, but they are terrible. That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they didn't like it didn't really mature into like what you think of like, oh, this is Next Generation until like the 3rd season. Now it seems like a lot of streaming shows don't have that kind of luxury where they're allowed to like kind of let it blossom and nurture under like the care of like just a few people.
Yeah, and I don't understand why they cancel certain shows, because there's some shows that are just absolutely phenomenal. They should not be canceled.
Money.
What's that?
It's usually about money.
But
like,
I don't know.
The other shows are bringing in a little bit more. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I think that there's some there's so much to it. Well, but I think that my hope though, on a positive, is I don't know if you guys have ever seen the channel Dust or some of those things like that. There's a great YouTube channel called Dust.
Dust.
And it is phenomenal. Yeah, and it is these little shorts that people make.
Okay.
And you know, you have the ability now with a mid-level computer and free software, or maybe, you know, a small amount of money poured into software, and we're not talking tens of thousands, hundreds of dollars into software. You can create Hollywood level.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really could.
You know, you really can. It's not it's, I mean, I know in design we had a term called democracy of design, where graphic design, there was this idea that anybody could have access now to the Adobe software. Anybody could have access to that when it became a subscription, and it became so much, and fonts became readily available online. And so anybody had access to the stuff with design. Well, we're seeing the same thing, I think, in art storytelling, where people can now, there isn't this huge wall that separates, this financial wall that separates the ability of the pros from the, I don't want to say amateur, but maybe independent filmmakers or independent storytellers. That somebody who isn't, you know, super rich can still do some quality stuff. You know?
I mean, I've seen some amazing like TikTok edits using a program called CapCut.
I just started using that.
And I'm just like, holy crap, you know? And I remember, like, I've got old footage, which I probably will never share, but I've got old footage from when my friends and I used to film like horror movies around the way, and like we had like the old school like cameras where we had to like, you know, initially it was small video cartridges, and then it became SD cards, right? But we'd have to like transfer that. We used to use Lightroom, and what was the other one? What's the program that Adobe had? After Effects?
Final Cut or Premiere or After
Premiere.
Yeah, Premiere. Yeah, Premiere. So we use Premiere and After Effects to like After Effects. We would do like stupid like glowing lightsabers or like fire from our hands and stuff. And then Premiere for editing, and now you got like it's so much easier than it used to be.
DaVinci Resolve, which is After Effects and Premiere, and it's free. So you don't have to like pay for Adobe at this point.
Yeah.
A lot of programs are coming out where the Adobe, you would think Adobe would be losing money. And I was talking to Tawny about this the other day, because I think people are, we were talking about, I have a Huion that I'm going to set up versus Wacom that's dying on me. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why do people keep buying that product? Why do people keep buying Adobe, when Affinity Photo exists and it's like $30 lifetime you get updates forever, and it works just as well if you can learn how to use it, right? And it's that good branding, right? Like, why do people keep buying Nike shoes when you can get a decent pair of shoes for way less?
When you get to establish yourself as industry standard, and you got to work in an industry with teams, then that's kind of how that kind of crap gets stuck.
It's good, Mark. I need somebody to market my product at that level. So
Ancient Ones is industry standard.
The thing Adobe has that right now, and they've done pretty well with, is not only do you get the Photoshop, but you're going to get InDesign, you're going to get Illustrator, you're going to get Substance Painter, you're going to get
all in one package.
Yeah, you get there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle, and they've been able to diversify enough to where if you only need Photoshop, absolutely, you don't need the Adobe.
Right.
But if you
need everything else,
if you're doing graphic design work, you're doing web design, you're doing some of those other things. Some of those tools that Adobe offers, if you're more than one, I don't want to say one stop, but you know what I mean. Where you don't.
Right. I got you. Yeah, like Affinity has. Affinity has their version of Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign, but it stops there, right? And then Adobe has, and the other thing is like Adobe has all the software, but also someone like myself, I've been using Adobe since I was like 17. Right. Like for whatever, I'm not that old, but I started on version like 3.1 or 4.0 or something, right? When I started with Adobe, Wacom wasn't a thing. I had to use a mouse, And that's so like all the things like I've tried Affinity Photo and I like it. It's actually really good on my iPad, but I always come back to Photoshop, to finish my product because it just does the extra things I need it to do. Like I've messaged Procreate before to be like, do you have a better lasso tool? And they're like, we have this thing. It's kind of like lasso. I'm like, but it's not lasso. Like that's the thing I use to make my art and I need it. If it's not in the program, I can't use that program because it's like if you're used to drawing with a pencil and someone's like, all you can draw with is a pen. You're like, well, this is not going to go well.
I love Procreate. I absolutely love it. I play with it all the time. But that's just it. I play with it.
Right.
And I have to sit down and actually do something legit and real.
Right.
I'm in Photoshop.
It's great for like when I'm on the road. Like I have a show in 2 weeks.
There are some people that make finished illustrations in it, and I have no idea. I'm like, man, you guys are really pro level if you're getting like super finished illustrations out of it.
There's two issues. Number one, it's an awkward tool because there are some things it just doesn't Photoshop does. And then the other thing is you're on your iPad.
Yeah.
So you're no bigger than 11 inches. So you're never creating anything bigger than 11 inches. Where I got my 22-inch. Speaking of Wacom, like I'm 22-inch Wacom over here.
That's what I've got. But my colors are fading on it all of a sudden.
Decent size,
my friend taught me a little trick to get the colors back, but like the colors on this monitor seem a little redder than they should be. I could tell just looking at myself on the screen right now, I'm not that red, in real life. So I've been meaning to swap it out. But speaking of Procreate real quick, this is not what I was going to talk about, but this book is worth investing in if you want to learn to, like Andrew was saying, like some of these people create these amazing, it's called Beginner's Guide to Digital Painting Procreate. It's, what is it? It says $32. I think I got it for like $15 on Amazon.
Oh, that's nice.
And it's like, this is what I've been using to kind of learn how to, because I use Procreate when I'm on the road and I just draw and then I'll bring it back into Photoshop later when I come home.
Yep.
And it's great. And Affinity Photo, you know, I was able to get the whole Affinity suite. Andrew found, I think on Black Friday, there was a deal. You can get all three of them on
Yeah, it was
multiple
like Black
platforms.
Friday during the pandemic, I think.
Yeah, so I got it on like PC, Mac, iPad, all for the same, like $100, I think.
Nice.
Jason
I'll
is
have to
saying
look
there's a
into
big Procreate update coming out soon. The thing I was going to talk about is another book, though. Do you guys play? I know Andrew plays D&D. John, do you play D&D at all?
I've been playing D&D since 3rd grade, dude.
Amazing.
I just
Oh, that's right. You work for D&D, so why I'm asking that question. So last week I talked about last week.
I don't play Magic. I just do stuff for Magic, and I don't play. I know how to play. I played a few times. I love
Sure.
it. Cool game. You're wrong. But
So last
D&D
week I
is
talked about the deck of stories where you can build your own small quick adventures using the orc system, which is a D&D product, or it could be
That's
anything.
cool.
You can use it for anything. But this week I was going to talk about. So this is what I've been learning how to DM myself. So I got this lazy.
Oh,
My
there
cousin
you
told
go.
me about this. If you don't have this, it's so worth. And there's like a workbook you can get, and there's another. There's 3 books in the series. You don't need all 3, but this first one is called Return of the Lady Dungeon Master, and basically there's like a 8-step program, for lack of a better way to bring this up, but it's basically review your characters, create a strong start, outline potential scenes, define secrets and clues, develop fantastic locations, outline the importance of your NPCs, choose relevant monsters, and select magic item rewards. And he goes through step by step on here and tells you how to like set all this up. So like when you and your friends sit down and you're like, basically it helps you not. You're always going to have a what do I do now scenario, because your players never do what you fucking want them to do.
No, they don't.
You know, so it kind of helps you prepare for like here's plan A, here's plan B, and if they deviate from those two, you better learn how to wing it. You know, but yeah, this book is, I want to say it's like $15, but yeah, this is what I will try not to talk about another D&D product next week. I was going to talk about push pops, man. My kid found push pops at the store. This seems so stupid to talk about. Them? Yeah, that's what I said. She came up with a push pop, and I was like, man, I remember. This took me back because when I was, when I was like 12, there's a video store up the street called Jack's Videos, and my allowance every week was $5. I remember for $5 I could rent a Nintendo game, buy a bunch of candy, and play the arcade machines there before I came home. And this dude had a cool policy where like if you came home with the game and you were like, this game sucks, if you brought it back within an hour, he would just let you pick out another game.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was a small, it was my first time like renting anything. I remember that's the first time I rented a VHS cassette there. I picked Masters of the Universe with Dolph Lundgren. Yeah, I didn't know what the hell was happening. My dad took me to this video store and was like, go ahead and pick out a movie. And I'm like, excuse me? Because I'm used to going to theaters, right? And then it takes me to the kids section. I see the cover, Dolph Lundgren with the sword up. And I'm like, is that He-Man? Yeah. I'm like, is that He-Man? Because I didn't realize Masters of the Universe is what it was called. Because I think I was like 11 or 12. And it was like, I thought it was He-Man. So I'm like, is that He-Man? And he's like, yeah. I might have been younger than that, not think about it. Because it came out when I was really young. But I remember taking that movie home and watching it. And it was amazing. That movie was amazing for its time. Now you look at it and you're like, whew, this is rough. They are making that into a live action, though. It's actually happening.
Yeah, the thing that made that special though was back when they didn't do those kind of things with any sort of real budget back then, and that was one of the first ones they did. They actually gave a real budget to something like that, and so it was cool in that respect. Now it didn't come together as well as I guess we'd all hoped, but
if I remember right. I think they ran out of money halfway through because that was like towards the end of Canon Films, who was the people that produced and developed it.
Oh, really?
And I think that was like halfway through. They were basically like, "Hey, we're broke. Nothing left in the tank for our studio."
That's like the same stuff that happened with. So I met the guy who worked on the special effects for Tron when I was in art school back in the day. He also did a lot of the special effects for Blade Runner. And the Blade Runner thing that I think is very interesting, and a quick side note is the opening sequence where you see the city skyline. He was describing how they filmed. It's actually Chicago. They filmed the skyline. They put a piece of cardboard over the lens to form the shapes that they wanted for the city, and then they filmed it. And I was like, that's cool. But the thing that Andrew, your comment reminded me of Tron was Tron. If you watch the beginning, if you've seen the original Tron, certain parts of it, they're super glowy, okay? Because they hired a company that had to go frame by frame and make them like kind of like what they do with the lightsabers, right? They had to highlight them and make them glow. But they ran out of money, and when the scenes that they ran out of money is there's certain scenes where they're kind of half glowing. So they ended up doing was building new suits with reflective material of whatever color you were, and they would reflect the light off you, and that's why you see only half of them glowing. And I was like, you don't really notice those things when you're a kid because it's such a cool movie and you're just enjoying the movie.
I didn't notice when I was a kid, but I've rewatched it since.
Yeah, you'll notice it as an adult for sure.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of things I see it. Like, I found, like, my friends and I one time sat down and found a bunch of errors in the original TMNT movie. Like, which you just don't see when you're a kid. You're just enjoying the ride, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But I've heard about that.
A lot of that kind of stuff is cleaned up and all that.
Sure.
Like in post.
One hopes that is, unless you're George Lucas and just leave everything alone.
True.
We're not going to go there. What else was I going to ask you about? Oh, so let's talk a little bit about your art. I mean, that's what you do.
Yeah, it's kind of thing I do sometimes.
That thing you do. So like, you know, I've seen a lot of your work from back in the day. I didn't really get to see it in person because I didn't realize you were right around the corner from me in San Diego, obviously. But I did stop over at your booth at Gen Con last year, and I basically bought this painting on the spot because I loved it. It's right there. Right there.
Yeah.
There we go. Because I obviously like space and I like astronauts and all that stuff. This is an awesome painting. But I remember you were telling me about your process with it, which is what I thought was very interesting. So I don't know if you want to like talk about that a little bit.
You know, it used to be when let me go back to the beginning and I'll kind of move forward.
Yeah.
So back when I first started my career, I was going to be a graphic designer. I want to be an illustrator that did graphic design thing, focused on the graphic design thing, and was focused on the graphic design thing, and was like hardcore into the graphic design thing, and then decided to make a switch back to illustration after I did graphic design for a while. And when I did that, I went to IMC. I don't know if you guys know what IMC is with Illustration Masterclass. Yeah. And that was phenomenal. And I got to listen to one of my heroes, Boris Vallejo, and he gave a talk about photo references. And I had always kind of used references to a certain extent, but he went really in deep into reference. And so I was like, okay, I got to really learn how to use photo references and get better at it. And the same year that I did that, I got to meet Todd Lockwood. And Todd Lockwood said something that totally changed my life was, we all know what our mom looks like, but we can't draw her. And I was like, that's freaking brilliant. And he says he said it a different way, and he might have, I don't remember, but it's in essence, that's the core of it, is that somebody you see every day. If I told you, gave a piece of paper and said, draw them as realistically as you can right now, you can't do it. You just can't do it. And I use the same analogy to my students. I say, I ask them, how many times have you guys seen the train? Has everybody seen the train in here? And all their hands go up. Seen the train. So then I say, how many wheels are on a train? And they all just freeze. Well, I say, okay, but if I told you right now to draw a train, you've all seen a train. Why can't you draw it? What's the problem? Because you don't know. And you don't remember those fine details. But yeah, you think you're going to remember the subtleties of somebody's nose, subtleties of somebody's eyes, their eyebrows, the shape of their cheeks, the length of their hair. You think you're going to remember all that, and you're just going to try and wing it and draw somebody, and you think you're going to get it right? No, you're not. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have errors in how you draw it. So not that there's anything wrong with drawing out of imagination. Don't misunderstand. I just think that's a powerful, good thing. But there is a point where when you're trying to capture the essence of something, you need to go back to that thing and remind yourself what that is, and remind yourself of those things. And so as I built into that process, I was shooting a lot of photos, but I found that I was figuring out that it was really limited in my process of I could only draw what I could get. I mean, I could draw other things, but I felt confident when I had the reference. The better the reference, the more confident I felt. And so, but so you're limited by your photos of what you can find photo reference of to a certain extent.
Sure, totally.
And so I was like, how do I go past that? And I got lucky, and I took a class through CG Masterclass. I enrolled in a class in there Guy was teaching a class from 3D to 2D. And it was a phenomenal course. It was super awesome. And he basically got me over my fear of 3D because I had a copy of ZBrush for like 10 years that I'd open up and I'd close because the interface was so
It's
scary.
intimidating when it opens up.
Oh, was that like back around ZBrush 3 also
Yeah,
then? Or
it was an early version.
Yeah, even then, like the early versions are really rough and scary.
Yeah,
The current one is still intimidating, but yeah, the older ones are even worse.
As far as the interface goes, the program's my favorite. It's awesome program. So that's what I did was I took that class and he got me over my fear of ZBrush, and I got really deep into it as far as helping me create references, looking at how things are lit, looking at how things actually look, and that was really cool. And then I had gotten some work from Upper Deck, and I was doing a piece for Upper Deck, and I was like, oh, you know what? I came up with this idea. I was like, because I was doing Spider Girl, and I'd done this image of Spider Girl. I said, I should print this out and take it to my booth and have it sitting there as a 3D print because I'd already done the sculpture, because I'd done it for the reference. And so I was all excited. So I'm gonna print this thing out, get myself 3D printer. So I got a 3D printer and I'm gonna print this out. What I realized was my sculpting, even though it worked great for references, it was crap, just absolute crap for printing. And so I started to resculpt it. Because I didn't do any of the back, because I just left the back a complete mess because you can't see the back from her. And just so many things were so bad. So I realized, okay, I really have to learn to sculpt if I actually want to make prints from sculpture.
Right.
And so then this goes back to your D&D thing. We had started a new campaign, and I had a druid.
Nice.
And I didn't like the mini that our DM put out for me. So I went and I sculpted my own druid.
Nice. That's
So
cool.
I made my own character because I didn't like the character he had. So I made my own mini of him so that way I could have it look the way I wanted it to look. So I spent, that was around Christmas time. Because I remember, because I had time off from school because I teach full time. And so it was during Christmas break. I remember doing like 3 or 4 gosh darn near all-nighters just to sculpt my character so we could have it for the next D&D session.
That's dedication, man.
Yeah, I'm sick. I know, it's sad. But that's where I really taught myself to sculpt and to print stuff out. And so that's kind of been like kind of a side hobby passion thing, is getting really into the sculpting part with ZBrush just as much as the illustration part. So
yeah,
I mean, I think speaking with you at Gen Con last year what gave me the push to. So Andrew and I have been talking about doing 3D stuff and bringing it into Photoshop for me to create my worlds for a while. But after Gen Con is when I really like jumped into it, because I remember talking to you about your process a little bit, and I'm just like, it totally works. Like, why am I like so not wanting to do this, right? Like, I don't draw. I know myself, and I know I'm lacking when it comes to anatomy, because I'm used to doing landscapes. Now here I'm trying to create these characters for my world, and I don't, I was doing what you were doing. I was looking at photo references. I was shooting my own hands sometimes. I was shooting like my wife. I was shooting my friends, and then I was like, sometimes you're just not getting what you want. So like some of the last couple pieces that I mentor under Scott Fisher for his class, Smart School class. So the last couple pieces, characters I've made, Andrew has helped me 3D. Like, I'll send him a sketch, or we'll start a base model in Poser, and he'll help me like put it together essentially. And then I start with that as my base, and then I sketch, and then I do my lasso stuff on top. And in Scott's class, he won't let me go to the crazy stuff of my shapes until my sketch looks good. So I have to sketch sometimes. Like, I did a fairy piece called Merrick. I must have sketched her over 17 times, 18 times till I got it just perfect. Well, perfect. And then he would let me go ahead and start doing my thing. But really, honestly, talking to you gave me that extra kick I needed to be like, why isn't this, like, it's right there. Why am I? Because I think a lot of people come from, like you mentioned, photo reference and stuff. I do a lot of photo bashing. I was always like, under the impression that it's bad and you shouldn't do it because that's what the people want you to think, right? Those who don't make you feel bad because you're doing it, basically. And Scott was one of those people who was like, it's you would be amazed at how many people do that. Like
Yeah.
so like 3D is no different. If you could build it in 3D, like that thing is built in 3D and then you painted it, it looks amazing. Like nobody would know the difference unless
Yeah.
they listen to this conversation. Like
Right.
Do you light within Blender or anything, or are you just entirely ZBrush?
I was just entirely ZBrush until about 3 years ago. And then, well, actually, when I first learned, I was doing Keyshot. The problem with Keyshot is Keyshot's stupid expensive.
yeah,
It is.
So
it is unless
It's
you're
a little
Andrew.
clunky. No, well, it's a little clunky too, from what I remember.
it is clunky to a certain to do anything beyond just surface material.
What
So
is
like if you want
Keyshot now?
So
Keyshot's a render.
Keyshot,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
it's a render that ZBrush outs to like kind of go along like, hey, like you don't like with Blender stuff, whatever. I have to set up like UVs and texture maps and
Yeah.
everything to kind of
Oh,
get
Keyshot
everything
does all that.
over to there and all that. Keyshot basically says, oh, we could just take it directly from ZBrush, plop it into your thing. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is. It's just the little bit like, granted, like last time I played with it was like I think 2 or 3 versions ago, so probably lots changed. But when I did it at the time, I was like, this is a lot of work. I'm just gonna go back to Blender for the amount of work that I was doing in there.
Yeah, the thing of it is that it was great for. So let's say I want to take like armor, and so I got my character somewhat sculpted out with armor, and I want to see what it's going to look like in a sunset. What's that armor going to do in sunset? So I could throw in an HDRI behind it with the character, and then just make the entire model. So I wouldn't go in and break the model apart. I would have the whole model just be metal, and say, okay, this is it. And then I would mask those areas off, and just say, okay, that's how the metal's more or less going. And it would give me just a hint of these are the basic color tones. If it's reflecting, this is the basics of how it's going to look. And so it was a really cool tool for that. But exactly like you're saying, I can't do atmosphere. I can't do atmospheric lighting. I can't do fog. I can't do any of those things in Keyshot. So I've been doing most of it in Blender now. Because for that reason, because now I can put an atmospheric fog. I can put a spotlight above something, and I can see this is what this is actually going to look like.
What was that? We had a plugin that we were using, Andrew, for atmosphere. Remember? I don't remember what it's called now.
I think the one that we were sharing was physical starlight and atmosphere, which is fine. But like
it was good.
You could also do. There's loads. There's also HDRIs that you can use as well. There's also like I think Pure Sky is another one. There's a million different add-ons for atmosphere things.
I just use volumetric. I just do it.
Like honestly, nowadays I just do volumetrics and then like either an HDRI, like a mix of an HDRI and then like a sun lamp if I need it to be like extra punched.
Right. Yeah.
So I just need to like visually see something, right, to get me going. I don't need like all the extra bells and whistles, basically. Like the fairy piece, like Andrew and I did turnarounds, which I ended up using a specific angle for it, which works. It looks great. It's probably Scott was like, this is probably one of the most complicated pieces you've decided to create. And I'm like, yeah, man, this thing is driving me bananas, but I learned from it, right? Like it really helped. I didn't do the static side shot. I didn't do the front forward facing heroic pose. Jason, who's in the chat, he's seen it. He's been in class with me. And I got class again coming up, so I'm pretty sure ZBrush is something I've been considering getting just because Poser is fine, but it only gets you so far. Look, the muscles and stuff in Poser are garbage.
Have you tried Daz?
Or Daz is what we're using, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's fine. Like I said, it gets you where you want to go.
Daz originally called Poser and then switched names.
Maybe,
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
got a copy of Character Creator, and I've been dabbling with that. And that is actually, so far, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm the biggest problem I have right now is it's for a side project I'm working on for myself, and finding time to work on it. I had a little bit of a stretch a few weeks ago where I had a little bit of a gap between projects, and so I was able to work on it a little bit. And it's really exciting because I could build my character in ZBrush, and sculpt out all their clothes. Then I could attach their clothes directly to them in Character Creator. Then I could take them into iClone, which is a motion movement thing. And now I can have my character walk and take all these different poses. And so my side project is ultimately, which is that character behind you, it's going to become a graphic novel. And I talk about that. But ultimately, I want to turn that into a graphic novel. But I'm trying to figure out, okay, I want to block all the scenes out from the graphic novel. And I've blocked them out through sketches, but then I want to block them out through the camera and Blender, and then I want to do my thing there. And I'm trying to figure out a way that I don't have to pose every character and take hours to pose them, And so I'm doing one panel every 3 days. I don't want to do that. Be able to crank out a page a day, if not 2 pages a day. But to be able to create those references, and I think I've solved that. I think I cracked that nut recently, where I'm going to be able to use ZBrush to sculpt my main characters, then pose them out in iClone, and then kick them out from iClone back into Blender, pop them into the scene, light it, boom, done. Can see exactly what to draw now. And then
now, is this going to be the Kickstarter you were talking to me about before?
Well, I got 2 Kickstarters going.
Okay.
The first one is going to be just a series of playmats, because a lot of fans from Magic have asked me to do some number of playmats. That one will go live this summer. And so I'll have a Kickstarter this summer.
Is that through Ultra Pro?
What's that?
Don't you have to do it through Ultra Pro?
Yes. Yeah. I've been talking with them, and so we're working on a thing with that. And they're totally cool about it. They're like, oh yeah, we just need the art from Wizards. So
cool.
I just have to get the Kickstarter going, and then I'll order them from Ultra Pro and get those. And then I think I'm going to switch all of my prints to limited edition now. I used to have open-ended editions on all my prints, but
sure.
I think, I think there needs to be more value to them, I guess, just making prints and things like that. So, and I've also noticed a few people putting certificates of authenticity with them. And I'm only doing that now because I found some of my work showing up on Walmart as playmats. So,
no.
Yeah. So, it happens. I mean, you can't, it is what it is, the world we live in. So, so I noticed a couple because I was talking with, I think it was Eric DeChamps about this a couple weeks ago. And I mentioned to him that, I saw one of my Magic cards as a playmat on Walmart. And I said, what's up with that? But yet Ultra Pro says they're completely sold out of my playmats. But Walmart has tons of copies. How does Walmart have tons of copies? That's because it's coming from somewhere in Asia. They're printing them and they're shipping them over here, and they're not actually. And if you get them, they're going to be a bad scan of your art. It's not going to be. They just took your art from Ultra, and I'm putting it on
Walmart. Doesn't know any better, right? They need someone at Walmart who's like, this is not legit.
Yeah. So anyway, it is what it is. But so that's why I'm going to start putting certificate of authenticity with stuff now. If that's going to start happening, I feel like I need to do that.
That's a good plan. Yeah.
And it gives, I guess it also gives an extra bit of value too, because it's I know it's the thing. Yeah. This is
legit. You bought it from me. You can prove you bought it from me, and it's a little bit of a special thing because I have a print from a friend of mine that he gave me. We did a trade, and he gave me one of his prints, and it has a certificate of authenticity. And I thought it was the coolest thing when I got it.
That's
so
cool.
I'm like,
I only give a certificate for the big medals. That's the only time I get one. Well, some of my guys haven't gotten theirs. I designed certificates for the giant medals. Ooh. But, initially I had it on paper prints, and I thought, this isn't cool enough. So then I tried to make a plexiglass kind of glow version of it. And then it looked okay, and I'm still not, I'm trying to get cool. I want something unique, because these people who buy the metal from me, like Nelson, who's in the chat, they're spending $1,000 on the thing. So I don't want them to be framing a piece of paper. I want something cool that they hang next to it, right? So I suppose I could just put it on a piece of metal, but that just seems like a cop out.
Well, I don't know. A piece of paper, I don't think, because I think it's supposed to be the art, and then you put the certificate of authenticity.
I'm not calling you out about your paper, man. Don't worry. I'm talking about my metal. Okay.
No, don't worry. I got no shame,
Yeah.
man. I got no shame. I don't care.
I actually got 2 questions for you from the audience.
Sure, what's up?
One was, who are some of your influences as an artist? It's a tough one, right?
There's a lot of different influences I have. I'll list off a few, but I know I'm gonna leave some
Sure.
out.
Yeah.
And to those people, both alive and dead, I apologize if I leave them out. But like, I always loved John Singer Sargent. Was one that was I always loved Singer Sargent's work. And I've been trying to work my way that direction slowly. Because it doesn't. If you look at my work, you probably don't see it in there because it's like, dude, you're so far different, and I'm so far different because I'm trying so hard to get there. I feel like I'm not necessarily there. And another guy's called Pino. He died, let's say, not fairly recently, but kind of recently. I came across his work one time when I was down in New Orleans on accident. There was a Pino. Huh?
Wasn't he a romance cover artist or something? Or is that someone else I'm thinking of?
Covers, but he did a lot of women and just kind of like almost like village kind of stuff where they're like, carrying wheat or carrying, or doing the laundry or things like that. I mean, it was just, but it was slice of life, I guess, is what you call it, kind of stuff. And it was just everyday, beautiful people, but not, and obviously not sexualized or anything like that. Very, very just normal people, but they were gorgeous, beautiful people. Both men and women that he painted, and just slice of life kind of stuff. So gorgeous. Always loved his stuff, and he could put colors in there, and it just blow me away. Like put blue in people's hair, and it'd be like, but yeah, they didn't look like they had blue hair. It was just so gorgeous.
Oh, man. That's cool.
It's just amazing. So that's one person. Obviously, Donato Giancola is a huge influence on me. Dan DeSanto,
all of us.
Yeah, I know, right? The standard guys like that.
I mean, Fisher's obviously is top tier for me. So
yeah, and Jacobson, Tyler Jacobson's a huge influence on stuff I do. Even though he's one of my best buds, I just look at his stuff and I'm just blown away every time. And then I love anything that comes out of Orientalism. So
sure.
I'm huge fan. I think that's one era that doesn't get enough. Everybody talks about Buro and they talk about that period, and they talk about some of that romanticism and stuff like that. And that, because I remember I'd kind of listened to some people give talks and they talked about that stuff. So I bought this big old book on romanticism. I flipped through it and I was like, not bad. It's okay. But I put it away.
Orientalism that's where it's at.
Yeah, I know. And then I stumbled on Orientalism a few years after that. And when I stumbled on that, I was like, this is me. This is what I want to, look at. And so cool. Orientalism is a big deal for me whenever I'm looking for inspiration and things like that. And lately, honestly, some of the stuff that I've really been looking at, it doesn't show as much in my work necessarily as a one-to-one influence of, this is what I want to do. But I've really been looking at stylized stuff. I've been really looking at stylized, both sculpture and stylized, kind of paintings, where I've really enjoyed where people they aren't trying to do super realistic. They're really stylizing it, not Disney-esque because it's not Disney, but it's still in that same kind of vein, that still kind of almost cartoon, almost animated vein.
Yeah,
it's really. Yeah. I don't know why. For some reason, it's just really appealed to me, and I've just been really, really enthralled by stuff. And there's so many young artists, so many people that are doing it. They're doing such an amazing job with it and doing so well with it, and it just blows my mind. So, yeah, hopefully that kind of answers
that. That definitely answers it. The other question this is a D&D question. Sure. What's your favorite character or race to play, or both?
Like
character class.
character class. Yeah, let's talk about character class. The race problem is I tend to be a min-max player sometimes.
Sure.
So it's hard for me to get away from the variant human because
Yeah.
I automatically get a feat at first level. So by getting a feat now, I know the D&D 1 they're supposed to be changing that to where and I don't. We're playing 5th edition right now,
Yeah.
and so variant human, man, you can't beat variant. I mean, variant human when you get a feat and you can pick up like something like a sharpshooter at first level,
You're in. Yeah, gotcha.
You can't beat. So,
Sure,
but
that's
now
fair.
class. I played a druid up to about 12th or 13th level. I can't remember how far we got, somewhere in there. I really enjoyed the druid, and so I really enjoyed that. But what I'm playing right now, and so I usually like play a woodsman. I always tend to something outdoors, something
Okay.
woodsman,
Like a ranger or something.
Yes, and so I read the ranger, and I really disliked how they wrote the ranger in 5th edition.
Oh,
But the
really?
beautiful thing, but I love 5th edition. The reason why I love 5th edition so much is because the way that they wrote the rules, you don't like it, make your own.
Yes.
And that's what I'm doing right now. And so I've got a fighter that I did Elrich Knight with, and I took him up to 5th level. And then since he did Elrich Knight, his storyline, not to go too much of a tangent, but his storyline is that he was he was supposed to be a magic user, but he sucked so bad at it, his dad pulled him out of there and put him in fighter school, and so he became a fighter.
That's cool.
But then after 3 levels of becoming a fighter, he kind of started to figure out the magic part, and it's like, oh, that's how that works. But he's only got an 8 intelligence, so but there's no stopping. So you can still be an Eldritch Knight with an 8 intelligence.
Yes.
So he picked his open spell to be Find Familiar. Well, he cast it, and he got a familiar. He got a Fey familiar, but he didn't really get a familiar. He got a true Fey. And so that Fey is like talking him into, hey, you know what? My queen's got some really cool stuff she could give you if you want. And so then at 6th level, he became a warlock. And so he became Fey-bound warlock. And so now that kind of gets the woodsman, and then he's an archer too. So now he's got this Fey spirit, and now once he got to be 8th level, he did what is it? Pact of the Chain. So now now his Fey can take the actual form of the sprite that she actually is, and so she actually takes.
So you're dual classing.
Yeah,
that's hard. That's hard,
man. And then he'll pick up. He probably will at some point pick up druid as well in that mix.
Yeah, I'm dual classing for the first time in a campaign with some friends, and it's really difficult on some parts because I want to do, like, I should have gone full rogue, but I was trying to hide as a bard, so I went bard first. Now I'm rogue. I still have some bard abilities, and I'm just like, I kind of don't want to use these, but they come in handy, like. So, yeah. But I like the rules where you can like you said, you can make your own rules. I like the fact like our DM's very like, I can be like, hey, can I try this or can I do this? And for the most part, she'll be like, yeah, man, sure, as long as you're not like overpowering yourself, right? Like,
yeah, and I think that's the beautiful part of it is, they built it in such a way that if you don't like how this character is built, there's certain ways to do it, and there's ways that if you're creative enough, and that's the part I enjoy about D&D is if you're creative enough and look for new solutions in different ways of combining characters and classes, you can really put together some neat stuff. Like I'm doing the cheater thing where since I'm warlock and I'm the archer, so I've got archer, I've got sharpshooter, I've got the archery thing from fighter, so I get 2 attacks per round. Then I also from warlock I picked up devil sight, and then I've got darkness as my 2nd level spell. So I can darkness on myself, and I get advantage on every shot, and I get 2 shots per round. With sharpshooter, I get a +10 to damage with advantage on the shot, and I can.
John's that guy.
You're like action. Get 4 shots. That's a ranger, and then I have my familiar, which before she became a Fey, she was an owl, and she would fly in and give me advantage on flyby with a help action. And so before I had darkness. And so that kind of felt to me like a ranger. That's what a ranger was, And
It's a good build.
And I just that's what I love about the game is you can do those kind of things.
It's the so if you're playing with a bunch of players like that, I think it's cool. But like we play in a campaign sometimes where the players like you, and they have all this crap that they thought through, and then I'm like, I'm just gonna go stab the guy, like is what I got, guys.
Yeah, but I think that's what makes it fun. Is we have like the people in our group. We've got me and Brandon, who's one of the guys we play with. He both me and him, we really enjoy getting deep into the game and all the numbers and stuff like that. And then a couple of other players, I mean, they're good players and I love playing with them, but they don't get deep into the numbers,
Right.
And that's okay too. And we just love all being around the table together and just hanging out.
Yeah, I'm still trying to I like your way of like I'm consistently now sitting down thinking, how can I combine things to make it? I'm not trying to like be too technical. I'm just like, what can I do to make this cool, like different, right? Yeah. Andrew's really good at building goofy characters that make us all laugh, like And then we're playing in a haunted house right now. I built a small kitten or tabaxi, basically a small cat that's a ghost finder, right? And it's probably I'm having fun with them. I'm just being goofy with the character, but it took me a minute to be like, just break away from this standardized way. Like, you don't have to make the character this way. You can be different. Right. You can do something fun with the character. Like, in my other campaign with Claire, I've got a dagger that comes back to me, but it's not on a chain of return or anything. It actually, I based it off of Aegis Fang, Wolfgar's hammer, so it rematerializes into my hand after I get rid of it. But everyone's like, oh, it's just like Critical Role. I'm like, it's not from Critical Role, but I can see where you got that from, Critical Role.
Well, Critical Role actually comes from the game. Because that's just it. As an Eldritch Knight, and that's what I did was I had 2 hand axes before I got high enough level. When I was like 5th level, before I got my Warlock stuff, I used 2 hand axes and I would throw those in combat, and I bound myself to those 2 hand axes. So as my bonus action, I would summon them back.
Yep.
So I summon one back and then throw it. And then
I don't even have to use a bonus action, which is the beauty of my weapon. I just move.
Oh, there you go.
It just comes back to me, man, and I'm just like, let's go, But like, that's I remember when I first played D&D, I started on 3rd edition with serious level players who wouldn't let you do anything extra. Were very sticklers for the rules. So now when I'm getting back into it, and now when I do my own thing, it's fun to like when your friends are like, can I try this? You're like, go ahead, let's see what happens. And then you're like, because it's more fun if you let your players. Like, you're not letting them get away with everything per se, but you're also just letting them try something different and then see where the story goes. Like in the big artist campaign I'm part of, our stories, like I thought it would be a standard D&D game when we started, but we've all got these elaborate ass backstories now. And like every one of us is like a unique character, and we're like this tight, serious group of players now, And then the one I play with Andrew is just us goofing around and having a fun time, Andrew and I are like I think you and I are like the Laurel and Hardy of the groups, where we're just like, let's just trigger this bomb and see what happens, One of us will fly away. I'm a fairy artificer, right? He's a blob that gets into a jar that I carry along with me,
I am basically the Thing, but as an assassin.
So we always go off mission together. I'm just like this, and we're having a good time, and our DM's super chill with whatever. Like, we just created I wanted to make a fastball special, if you know what that from X-Men, but I was like, but I want to throw the jar, so we came with a whole way of throwing the jar, and the blob comes out of the jar and attacks the enemies, and that's a distraction, so I can swoop in.
I can't remember because it's been a minute. Does that use your blunderbuss?
No, I throw it. It's just a jar I throw. I also have an enchanted blunderbuss that anytime I land the attack, it fires 20 random things out of it. And one of the things that comes out of it is a dragon. It could be a cat.
There's a big old asterisk on that. When it fires.
When it fires, yes. Hey man, it's fired twice so far. Let's give it some credit.
Out of how many?
Yes, trust me. We're not getting lucky with the blunderbuss. So, but yeah, like. So by the way, everyone's saying, John, your build is awesome. Your build is awesome. The character build, like it's very unique. Like, so in our group, Ben Hill, he consistently is like you. He tinkers and he comes up with these like characters where you just like he'll do multiple things at once, and you're just like, all right, that's cool. I didn't realize your character could do all that extra garbage, you know. And that's what I always message Ben for like, what do you think about this? What do you think? Like, how do you think I can make? And unfortunately, in my one character, I started out as I'm a bard in hiding, who's actually an assassin rogue. I should have just made him a rogue from the jump and pretended to be a bard. But I thought, but I thought starting as a bard was the way to do it because again, I'm still kind of new to my own campaign building and stuff, and whatever. I'm just rolling with it now.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because that's how I did when I started 5th edition. That's when I played the druid.
Yeah,
and I did some of the same thing. I made some of the same mistakes you did. I did moon druid when I first started. And
moon druids can't wild shape, can they?
Or can they can. Yeah,
okay,
that's the main thing. That's their main go-to.
Okay. I only started my druid. I made my first druid ever when I started testing Aaron's deck for him.
Okay. Yep.
I was gonna play with you guys last year at Gen Con. He forgot to send me.
Yeah. Well, see, I didn't even get to play because I couldn't find him.
Yeah, Aaron,
they changed places like 3 times, and so I never found him. But I did play with him a couple of weeks ago. We played a great campaign that he's working on right now, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I've been trying to. He lives 30 minutes from me, so I was able to go there on Sundays and play, but it's just too hard lately. So
yeah, that does make it tough. But yeah, I had the same problem you did, where I ended up playing my druid all the way, like I said, all the way to 13th, and I didn't multi-class because of that reason. But even picking moon druid, I found out later was a mistake, because if I could have done it over again, which I do want to play another druid again straight through, but I would wholeheartedly do shepherd. I mean, I would do circle of shepherd, because I love the idea of the summoner druid. I mean, that is the coolest druid that you could have.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, if you do now, you got to have a DM that's willing to work with you on it, because if they're gonna do the conjure animal and they're gonna do it as complete randomness, which is a way to do it,
right?
And you don't know what you're gonna get, then don't be a summoner druid, because it's not gonna be fun. I don't think there's too much randomness. But if they let you choose what you summon when you do conjure animal, and you say, okay, you can choose it, then I think summoner druid could be amazing, because you could, and you got to have a DM that's willing to give you a little bit of freedom with that, because you could summon, I want to say it's 16, but I could be too high with that. It might only be 8. But regardless, let's just say the lower number, like 8 wolves in combat at once, all attack with advantage because they get pack tactics.
Right.
And on top of it, at 6th level, their attacks count as magical attacks to overcome resistance.
That's cool.
Awesome. I mean, that's so cool.
I wonder if Merrick.
You do your roar, and they come. Animals just come and help you. How cool is that?
Hey, Jason, if you're still watching, does Merrick get pack tactics? My fairy is cursed, and she's a shifter. So every time I activate the curse, I roll a d6 to see what she turns into. Be like a were-rat, a were-bear, a werewolf.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
So I turn into a werewolf. I turn into a flying werewolf, actually, because my wings don't go away.
That's cool.
Those are built into me. So, well, that's cool, man. I could talk D&D forever.
Oh, I could too, man.
But yeah, like
since the 3rd grade, dude. I've been playing since. I mean, this is forever.
I didn't really get a chance to play D&D until I was in college, because in high school everybody was playing Macros and Riffs, and D&D was there, but it was like such a secret club. Like I didn't even know about it till like later, right? And then I remember starting college. One of my friends who went to high school with me was like, "Hey, you want to come over and play some D&D?" And I was just like, "I don't know what that is, but let's go." And we started playing, and I went the basic elf. I remember I just went with, I want to be an elf. I like Lord of the Rings. Elf sounds cool. Right. And then halfway through the game, I was like, I should have picked something different. Like this is too just breezing through this thing. And then I didn't play for a number of years because I wasn't going to learn a DM in 3rd edition. But when 5th edition came out, I was like, this is easier to digest. I'm actually working on RPG in my world, 5e, so you can play in Spelljammer. You can play in D&D with it. It's built
Nice.
I'm gonna kickstart it hopefully by the end of the year. Plug that while I'm at it. But all right, well, we're a little over time. Let me see. Just making sure I don't have any other questions for you.
Actually, I got a quick question. John, do you have did you mention you had a printer, a 3D printer?
Yes. Yeah.
Which one do you have, out of curiosity?
I got the Form 3. I had a Form 3.
You have one of the form printers. How are
Yeah.
those?
I love them. I absolutely love them. They're really nice. They're really, really nice.
I have not had a chance to play with one, but I have heard that they are a very nice machine.
Yeah, they're really good. They're not. I got to be careful here. To me, they're not expensive, and it's not because I have a whole bunch of money. It's just when I think about printers, you have to understand. I'm thinking about printers coming from $100,000.
Yeah,
That was when I was introduced to 3D printing. So I thought it was never accessible for a normal dude to have a printer on their desk. And now that they're down in the $3,000-$4,000 range, to me, even though yes, that's a lot of money, when you have it in your mind that a 3D printer costs $100,000, a $3,000 printer that prints at the quality that this thing does is amazing.
I saw your sculpts at the show. They're good.
Yeah, that's the thing I was going to say is like, even though it's like $3,000 or $4,000, it's definitely like a higher quality than like I've only messed with Anycubic or Elegoo machines, and they're good. They are good, but like there is a noticeable quality jump between a form printer and like one of those.
Yeah.
Even if you get like the 8K or like a 12K screen or whatever on like an Elegoo or something, it's there's still a noticeable jump.
I mean, it's a great machine. I've never had any. I mean, I've had a few hiccups with it. I've had it crap out. I mean, it's going to crap out on you on prints. You're going to have, software glitches. It's going to be things. If you think you just got to know that, and it's not perfect yet, and it's not going to be perfect. And it's going to be
actually that's actually one other follow up question I can ask is like how many failed prints did you have before you eventually got to the point where you're like, okay, I think I know what I'm doing with this? Because I want to say about like 10 or so before I was like, okay, I think I know what I'm doing.
No, I did it the opposite way, where my first couple prints came out just fine because I had looked at enough stuff. But then you get overconfident and you start trying things, and then they start falling apart. And then you got to relearn and figure out, whoa, wait a minute here. Maybe I started the bar a little too low in what I was trying to print. Because first I just tried to print this. Okay, this is how messed up I was at the time with it, and how much I didn't wrap my head around it. I got the 3D printer. It's almost embarrassing to say, but bear with me here, and I feel bad. I'm just totally embarrassed to say this. I got the 3D printer so that I could shoot my 3D references, so I could shoot them with a camera. So I could print them out and then take.
I've done that a few times here and there because there is like 3D lighting is really good, but there are just like certain things that it still is not like 100% on that, like real light, real camera and everything.
I wasn't that smart. I just didn't wrap my head around, dude, put it in Blender and release it.
Well, I'm right there with you, man. There's things I was doing where Andrew's like, why aren't you just putting this in Blender? And I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah. I was like, I thought I had to have this 3D printer to get a good, I thought, I'm going to paint my little guys and photograph them and get these super cool.
You're doing the James Gurney thing, but like all exactly like set up. Yeah.
Yes. I thought, I'm just going to skip James's step where he's sculpting it out of clay. And I'm just going to 3D print it and then build the thing. And I didn't even wrap my head around the fact I could just build the whole thing in 3D. And that's what I've been doing ever since. But I'm glad I got it because now I do it for minis and I do it for sculptures and other things.
I like the fact that you build your own minis, man. My character's mini I ordered from Hero Forge.
Mm-hmm.
But in my head, I was like, someday I'm just going to make my own and it'll look cooler than this thing does.
Oh, dude, when you make your first one, you're going to be so hooked.
I mean, we're sitting on Loot Studios. We've got so many sculpts.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine we can't take some of those apart. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Like, a lot of them, Alan, like, a lot of them are it's like decimated. So, like, the UV topography of the whole thing is like, it's not clean for like posing or animation or whatever. It's like it's
Stunned.
optimized for like retaining as much detail while lowering the poly count as
Well,
much as possible.
what you can do is, and you could. You gotta be careful. I mean, obviously, because you bought it from somewhere, right? And so you got it, and somebody else's.
That's
Yeah,
true,
no,
yeah.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I'm not going to use it anywhere other than for a campaign or something.
Yeah,
just for
now
kicks.
what
Yeah,
you could
can't
do
sell
if
it.
you're doing it for yourself is what you do is in ZBrush you can rebuild that topology, and so it's
Oh
called
yeah, Z-Remesher, yeah.
remesh it and then project back on your Z-Remesh
Yeah,
as
that's
higher
true. You could do that.
higher divides, and so for
Tricks.
higher resolutions. And you can totally do that, and then you reprint that back in there. Then you hollow it back out, and you can reprint it and do whatever, or repose it. And then once it's reposed, then redesk and pop it back out again. Totally do that, and totally do that kind of. It's just,
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
I want to work with other. I mean, I might just talk to you later once you get better at
Yeah.
once you got your sculpts down.
Sure.
And I was just talking to Andrew about this because I want to build characters. My goal, Andrew and I bought Elegoo printers last year, right?
Yeah, that was a year.
About a year ago.
The Elegoo Jupiters.
The
Yeah.
Jupiters when they kickstarted them, and I'm finally gonna set it up this week in the garage because you can't set up in this room. It'll burn me out.
You don't want the resin fumes to like kill you.
But one of my ideas was to build characters in my world, like species and little minis and stuff, and sell those at the shows. Kind of like what you're doing at Gen Con with your sculpts, right? Like, but I want to make a bunch of them. Like, here's my paladin character, here's my rogue, and if you build them and print them yourself, you can sell. Obviously, I'm not going to sell them dirt cheap, but I can sell them at somewhat of an affordable cost.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to explore, is a way that I could send them out somewhere though and get them mass produced.
Yeah,
and
I would do that too.
I've looked at a couple companies, and the prices are fairly reasonable. Like I could get my minis printed, and they can print them and mass produce them for in the area of $1.50 a piece.
Okay.
Like
We'll have to
that.
talk later.
Were you thinking like just printing them mass produce, or like printing a master copy and then having someone mold and cast that?
Oh, you just send in your 3D file, and then they do it from there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's easier to do that. You just send them your 3D file, and they can break it up, do whatever they need to do to make it into different pieces. The problem you run into with that, from a guy I talked about who used to do this kind of thing, he told me it's all cool, prices are great, everything's good. Unfortunately, you will see your you get about a year and a half, and then after that,
your model shows up everywhere.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Like with the
Yeah,
Loot Studios, I'm always, they always say, "Hey, don't share this anywhere," but I'm like, people are sharing this all over. Like, we're not sharing it because we're like, because we know what it's like to have our stuff everywhere,
Right. But
And yes, this is a Tawny Fritzinger shirt.
Yeah.
A
lot of the 3D printing that I tend to do for myself is like I actually ended up getting into 3D printing because I learned originally sculpting so I can just make dinosaurs. And I was like, I just want to make dinosaur toys. And I just started like 3D printing them. So I've seen a few people where what they do is like sending it out, like they will have their own thing and they just basically produce like a very limited edition run order, or they have it where it's like on demand, where it's like if you order from me, give me like 2 to 3 weeks to print it out, and then I'll ship it out.
Yeah,
I think that's the way to do it.
Biggest hookup, or the biggest hiccup I've seen, the biggest problem I've seen with that is the packaging of the 3D prints and being able to get them out to somebody that it doesn't shatter and it doesn't break. And
I think with something like that, you'd have to kind of plan it like you would like a toy, or like molding for casting. Like you would have to make sure you separate it out to be like, okay, here's the sword. We're gonna have that separate so I can package that safely.
Yep.
Right.
So it's not just like hanging off with someone and then all of a sudden it gets snapped off.
There's some assembly acquired.
Yeah. Right.
It takes time, and that takes, when I've done that, because I've done that with a few of my sculptures, and that takes time to take your model and cut it apart.
It does. It's like a whole other job in some cases.
And so I got like 2 or 3 of mine that have that. Like I have I have this gal here where I have her and she's like this, and then here's her arm and shield here.
Mm.
And then this sword here actually comes off, and this arm comes off, and it actually this glues on here. I don't know if you can see it, but it glues on here kind of like that kind of thing.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
That's a big build.
And, what's that? What's that?
That's a big build.
Yeah,
Is that
and
7?
so you've got her as one piece, that is one piece, and so it all kind of glues together.
Yeah.
But it takes hours to cut it apart. You know, it's not like oh, just hey, slice it here. You got to figure out exactly where it's going to slice, and you got to do a male female connection so that the two can snap together. And it's time, and it's time consuming in the fact that you've got to start with your solid model, and then you got to hollow it out. And it's not time consuming as you're sitting there, click, 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 click. It's you got you set it in ZBrush to hollow, and then you go get something to eat because it's going to take 45 minutes to hollow out.
Right.
That's so. I can talk a little bit later afterwards, but I've done some ways around that. Like I pretty much ditched trying to do the hollow, with ZBrush entirely because I've had that issue too, where it's like this is taking forever. This is just too much.
Yeah.
That's also going to be dependent on like whatever. Like I don't know if Formlabs has their own setting within their slicer and stuff or whatever. Because like I just use a 3D slicer for the hollowing part and all that.
Oh, see, I've never tried that. I've always used just ZBrush to hollow everything out, and it works as long as you're patient and you wait.
Yeah,
it
takes ages for it to compute.
It's also really high resolution as well, and I don't need to add an extra million polygons to this thing just for the interior that nobody's ever going to see.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I've been trying to find a workaround. Supposedly, I talked with some guys that actually work at Pixelogic. One of the things they told me to do was to take your inside out, then take your inside out, re-topologize it into something way smaller, and then glue it back in there. And I couldn't quite understand what they meant when they said glue it. When I tried it, it just became a form inside of a form. It became a nesting egg thing as opposed to becoming one hollowed out.
You could do it, but it's been a while since I've done it. But like the way I remember doing it, it involves Dynamesh, and like that introduces its own headaches and stuff. Because then you have to clean it up.
Dynamesh at all? Yeah. That's how I do it. It's Dynamesh it.
We could talk a little bit after the show.
Yeah, let's. I gotta wrap us up and take us offline first.
Yeah.
Nah, you're good.
Yeah.
This is just what happens, man.
Good.
So okay, let me do the. Well, okay. For starters, is there a place everyone can find your work online?
Yes. Got my normal website, snakeillustration.com, and then I'm actually doing social media now. I've got an awesome student helping me out. She's helping me get this navigated because I'm not a social media guy. But she's been helping me out, and we've been posting regular. And so I'm on John Stanko Art Instagram. You can find me on there. And those are probably the main two places.
I'll drop the links at the bottom of the video. Yeah. And Andrew?
asidesart.com. And I guess I post the most right now on Instagram. But sign up for the newsletter, sign up for Patreon. Those are the best ways.
I see a lot of your Patreon posts too. So you do Patreon a lot. Yeah.
I've been trying to keep it to at least like 3 posts a month. More if I can swing it.
I'm really behind on Patreon. My stuff's at ancientones.net and AllenPanakal Art on all socials except TikTok still.
That TikTok, that bastard.
That guy's still squatting on my name, man. Just wait, man. I'm gonna send Seth in one day, and he's gonna be in a lot of trouble. And then our next guest is Matt Piquette. I believe that's how you say his last name.
On Friday, right?
On Friday night, yeah. He works in the gaming industry. Has worked with a bunch of companies like Brotherwise, and oh man, it's failing me right now. But Friday night, 7 p.m. Central. We have 2 shows this week, which we normally only do 1, but that's just what's happening. So.
Oh, and we figured out how to schedule streams now, so you can set a notification.
Yes, you can say notify me, and we'll let you know when we go live. You're welcome, Nelson. And give me a second to take us offline, and then we can continue.